Hi, I'm Tanya Vail. Actually was Tanya Van Dam at Microsoft, Tanya V. And I started at Microsoft in 1986 and left Microsoft in 2000. I started in the original International Product Group and my last gig was in the Windows Server Group. My first memory was the day the stock went live and we went public. And everybody was dancing in the halls and cheering and laughing. And I was in my office kind of going, what is the big deal? And I sat and was wondering. And about a year later, 6 months later, I'm like, oh, people had stock. I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't know that, and at the time, of course, I came in as a real newbie right out of college. So that is my first fun memory. And then the other thing I really loved about those days was you could decide what needed to get done. You could pick your own job, you could see a problem that needed to be solved, and you could just own it. You would go and pitch it to your boss and say, I think we need to focus on this or this, and you could create your own job, make your own decisions. So that was what it was like back then. The culture was very low-key. So my standard uniform, for example, because there weren't very many women there at the time, because most of them were programmers, and I was not a programmer. So the culture for me, at least started with uniform, which was jeans, t-shirt, and maybe a sweater, and the same sweater, by the way, in every single color, because nobody had time to shop. So you basically wanted to get up, get out of bed, get to work as quickly as you could, or sleep under your desk and wear the same thing the next day. That was pretty typical as well. And the culture was really about family because you spent so much time, and this campus was so secluded from the rest of Bellevue and even Seattle that we all just spent every meal here. We spent nights here, we spent weekends here, and it was a family, and we really worked well together. Great teamwork, really trying to take on some really hard problems and navigate new places that, you know, really hadn't existed before. And so that was really, really fun. My funniest memory of first meeting Bill, and nobody said Bill Gates, by the way, so we all still call him Bill, was I was walking in Building 4, and I had my water ski over my shoulder, and I was in my wetsuit still, and Bill comes walking down the stairs with a bunch of guys who I presume were from IBM at the time, and he looked over, and we hadn't met, and I looked over and I said, oh my God, my career is over. Right? This is his first impression of, oh my gosh, she just went water skiing for lunch. But that was what the culture was like there. And being a woman was a lot of fun because I got to just be one of the guys, really, in a fun way. And we did, you know, we all just kind of worked together. So the culture, you know, at Microsoft, I talked about, you know, everybody was here a lot, but we did all try to go see family. Luckily, my family was close by down in Tacoma, and I remember going down to Fort Lewis because I was an Army brat, and my dad was being given a retirement ceremony. He was an enlisted guy, so, you know, wasn't really a big wig or anything. And I remember him saying in front of all of these people, generals, everybody, he says, you know, it's been a great career or whatever, and, you know, my daughter's here, which is really special because she doesn't get home very often. She's working at this crazy company called Microsoft, and people had started to hear about it, but not really hear about it. And the one thing he said is, she's changing the world. She's changing the world. And what is really profound about that is Microsoft actually changed the world for the military. And so my sister is still there now, working for the Department of Defense. They do everything they do is through secure networks and secure applications and things like that. And so Microsoft is still having that impact. So he, you know, not knowing a lot about computing, kind of foresaw the future. One of my crazy jobs that I used to have, you talked about, you know, picking up a job, any job that needed to be done. One of my craziest jobs, and Bill, don't take offense to this, was actually working with Bill on all the covers that were happening in the late 80s and into the early 90s, and working on all those photo shoots. And these photographers would ask him to do the craziest things. Like one of his talents was to be able to jump over a chair. He had the amazing vertical leap. And so part of the part of what my job was kind of negotiating with him or negotiating with you, Bill, on what were you going to do that day? Like, if what was the ask, and were you in on it or were you not? And so I'm really proud of those moments where I got to be part of, I guess, capturing history and being, from a photographic point of view. So that was always fun.